My parents forged my signature, cutting me out of my grandmother's will. They figured I wouldn't catch on. I was always the quiet one. They removed my name from the house my grandmother left me. They faked my signature, convinced my sister it was legitimate, and assumed I'd never find out because I never made waves. But this time I wasn't quiet. This time, I became the force they never anticipated. My name is Emily, and I'm 29. If you met my family, I probably wouldn't stand out. And if you asked them to describe me, they'd say something like, she's quiet, keeps to herself, or even worse, she doesn't need much. Sounds innocent, right? Like I'm the easy child, the low-maintenance daughter, the one who avoids conflict. But let me ask you this. What happens to the child who never causes problems? They vanish. That's how it's always been. My younger sister Ashley is the favorite. She brightens any room she enters. Everyone says if she cries, the world bends over backward to comfort her. She changes her hairstyle, and it's a family affair. When I graduated college while working 3 jobs, no one even glanced up from their phones. I used to blame myself. Maybe I wasn't attractive enough. Maybe I wasn't outgoing enough. Maybe I just didn't sparkle in the right way. I don't recall when I stopped trying to be noticed. But I remember precisely when I started observing. He began to see patterns, how Ashley could make a single mistake and receive comfort, while I could achieve something significant and be met with silence.
Ow!
Her birthdays became elaborate photo shoots, while mine were forgotten twice. And still, I remained quiet, dependable, present, until one day, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. They were selling the house, my grandmother's house, the one she left to both of us in her will. But when I checked the paperwork, my name wasn't on it. Not anymore. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I stood up, closed my laptop, and knew this time I wouldn't let it go. If they wanted to treat me like a shadow, I was going to show them what happens when a shadow steps into the light. I wasn't always invisible. At least I don't think so. I have faint memories, glimpses of my mom brushing my hair before school, or my dad applauding when I correctly spelled dinosaur at the 2nd grade spelling bee. But they're dim, hazy, like trying to recall a dream that's already fading. God. By the time Ashley was born, I was 6, old enough to grasp when everything changed. It began subtly. She'd cry in the middle of the night, and suddenly my bed was moved to the hallway so her nursery could be quieter. She got a fever and the whole house went into lockdown. I got the flu. I was given a ginger ale and told to tough it out, champ. I adapted as kids do. I stopped asking for things. I stopped trying to be a bother. I became helpful, quiet, predictable. They adored that. So independent. My dad would proudly say, patting my shoulder like I was a miniature employee, "You're our easy one." My mom once told me, "Thank God for you." At the time I smiled. I thought that meant I was special. But being the easy one doesn't make you special. It just makes you easier to overlook. Ashley was everything I wasn't. Messy, boisterous, captivating. She'd throw tantrums and get ice cream afterward. She broke a neighbor's window and was defended for being creative. I once misplaced a library book and was grounded for 3 weeks. I kept my head down, earned good grades, didn't make a fuss, and they rewarded me by acting like I didn't exist. When I got into NYU, I shared the news in the kitchen during dinner. Ashley had just received her learner's permit. She held it up for everyone to see, and suddenly the entire evening revolved around how proud they were of her. No one asked what I'd study. No one mentioned it again. I didn't cry. Instead, I took on a second job to save for the deposit. I moved out. No one helped me pack. Ashley had cheerleading tryouts. My mom was busy with hair appointments. My dad texted, "Good luck, kiddo," and that was it. College was the first time I truly felt free. The first time I spoke and someone genuinely listened. Professors noticed me. Friends invited me out. Roommates inquired about my life. It was honestly disorienting to feel seen. Called home every Sunday out of habit. They'd ask, "How's school?" and I'd begin to answer. But then Ashley would get accepted into a sorority, or have a new boyfriend, or dye her hair purple. And suddenly, my updates became background noise. By junior year, I stopped calling. When I graduated with honors, I mailed the announcement card. Just one envelope, no response. Ashley was off on a graduation trip to Cabo. It was all over Facebook, so I stopped expecting anything. I learned to fill the voids myself. On holidays, I worked double shifts. On birthdays, I bought myself a cupcake and lit a candle.
Ow.
When I got promoted at work, I celebrated with my cat. But here's what no one tells you about being the strong one. Eventually, they stop checking if you're okay because they assume you always will be. Ashley could fail a class, and it would be a family crisis. I could get promoted twice in 1 year and hear nothing but silence. The only person who ever truly noticed me was my grandmother. She was quiet, too, in the same way I was. Gentle, observant, with a keen mind. She was the only one who remembered my birthday without Facebook. The only one who asked questions and patiently waited for the answers. When I told her about my promotion, she cried, "They don't see you, but I do." She was the first person who ever voiced that. She passed away 2 years later. At the wake, everyone was present, dressed in muted grays, weeping openly as if performing. My dad delivered a eulogy that sounded like it came straight from a greeting card. Ashley sobbed dramatically, her makeup streaking. People offered her tissues as if she were the lead in a play about grief. I simply sat in the third pew, hands folded, my tears silent. Grandma had left us something. Her house, the place we all grew up in, with its green shutters and creaky porch swing. She stated it would go to both of us, Ashley and me, equally. It was in the will. It was in the will. But last month, I overheard something that made my stomach churn. Ashley was showing a friend pictures of renovations, new backsplash, hardwood floors, a walk-in closet. "It's going to be mine," she said casually. "We're just listing Emily as having declined the inheritance. Made everything easier," I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Then I checked the county records. My name was gone. I hadn't declined anything, hadn't even been told. That was the moment, the breaking point, the match igniting, dry kindling. I was no longer the invisible daughter. I was the forgotten one, erased, silenced, and I was done playing that part. I didn't confront anyone, not immediately. That's the thing about people who've been overlooked their entire lives. We learn to wait. We observe. We gather evidence while everyone else forgets we're even there. So, I waited. I smiled through family group chats where Ashley posted home. Decor inspiration, like she was a design guru. Nodded along to my mom's subtle comments like, "Well, you always said you didn't want a big house, right?" Or, "Selling the house probably takes a weight off your shoulders." I had said neither of those things. What I had said months ago was that I was too busy with work to consider moving at that moment. That was it. That single sentence had apparently become their legal justification for pretending I didn't exist. Fine. If they wanted to play that game, I could too. Except I wouldn't play it loudly. I'd play it smartly. It started with the will. My grandmother's attorney was retired, but still, sharp and clear-minded. He remembered me. I drove to the outskirts of town and sat in his dusty little office while he rummaged through a file cabinet older than the internet. When he found the copy, he frowned. "She was very clear," he said. "A 50-50th split between you and your sister. Can I get a certified copy?" I asked. He nodded. "You'll want that." The next stop was the county clerk's office. I requested the property's title history acting. Casual, as if I were just curious. The woman behind the desk printed it out for me with a tight smile, and there it was. My name had been removed. The date, 2 months after Grandma died, signed, witnessed, processed. But the signature wasn't mine. It was my name, but not my handwriting. Not even close. My hands were cold as I stared at the page. They didn't just forget to include me. They forged my consent. I walked out of the clerk's office shaking, not with fear, but with adrenaline. The kind of slow, simmering intensity that builds when something finally breaks after too many years under pressure. This wasn't just favoritism anymore, it was fraud. And that changed everything. I called a lawyer the next day. Her name was Dana. Calm, precise. No nonsense. The kind of woman who could dismantle a family legacy with a single, well-crafted letter. She reviewed the documents I brought her without batting an eye. They're banking on the fact that you wouldn't notice, or if you did, you wouldn't fight back, she stated. They're wrong, I said. Good, she replied, sliding me a stack of forms. Let's make them remember. We filed for a formal title dispute and initiated a forensic handwriting review. I signed affidavits. I authorized contact with the attorney who handled the will. I gave her permission to subpoena digital correspondence if necessary. Dana worked quickly, quietly, and lethally. Then I waited. That was the hardest part. Not screaming, not posting about it, not sending my sister Anne. Unhinged text at 2 a.m., but I remained silent because I wanted them to feel secure for just a little longer. I wanted Ashley to keep uploading paint swatches to her Instagram story. I wanted my parents to keep forwarding emails about investment opportunities tied to a house they no longer legally owned. I wanted them to have no idea that the ground beneath them had already begun to shift. 3 weeks later, the first letter went out, a cease and desist to my parents, one to Ashley and another to the real estate agent they were working with. The calls started the next day. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine and watched as voicemail after voicemail piled up on my phone. First my mom, then my dad, then Ashley. Her message was a masterpiece of feigned confusion. Emily, hey. We didn't know you'd care about the house. You always said you didn't feel connected to it. Why are you doing this? I didn't respond. Not yet, because the forensic analyst called that afternoon. It's not your handwriting, he stated plainly. And it doesn't even match previous samples. It looks like someone copied your name from an old signature and tried to trace it. He paused. Whoever did this wasn't being careful. They assumed no one would ever look. They were half right, I said. Until now, I forwarded the results to Dana. The next letter we sent was a formal demand to restore my name on the title. Failing that, we reserved the right to pursue criminal charges. Dana drafted every word with surgical precision. The day it hit their inbox, everything went silent. No calls, no texts, no family updates about Ashley's new backsplash. Just dead air. And I liked it that way. It happened on a Sunday, the kind of day you'd expect to be quiet, slow, and safe. I was halfway through cleaning out my fridge when the buzzer rang. I didn't recognize the number, so I ignored it. It buzzed again, and my phone lit up with a text. We're downstairs. We just want to talk. It was my mom. I froze. I hadn't seen them in person since the funeral, and even then, it had been brief, awkward, and superficial, a mere formality of grief, nothing genuine. I considered not answering, but then again, I wasn't hiding anymore. So, I went downstairs. They were waiting by the curb. My mom in her sunglasses, the kind she wears when she wants to appear composed. My dad standing beside her like a statue that had forgotten how to be human. And Ashley leaning against the car, arms crossed, looking. Bored. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. We didn't know, my mom began, her voice breathy about the paperwork. We had no idea someone forged you signed it, I stated flatly. All of you did. She looked startled. It was just... We thought maybe it would be easier for everyone. Easier. I repeated. Easier to pretend I didn't exist. Ashley interjected. You were never around, Emily. You moved away. You never came home. You made it clear you didn't want to be part of things. No, I said calmly even. I stopped coming home because home stopped including me. They didn't respond immediately. My dad finally cleared his throat. Look, this doesn't have to become some legal battle. We're still family. I stared at him. When did I stop being treated like family? He didn't answer. My mom reached out, as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. Not dramatically, just enough to convey no. You didn't just forget me, I continued. You rewrote the script and edited me out. We thought you'd be okay, she said softly. You always are. That was the sentence, the one that shattered something inside me, because that's what it always came down to, right? I was strong, so they didn't need to care. I was stable, so they invested in the chaos instead. I was quiet, so they mistook it for consent. I'm not here for an apology, I said. I don't need one. And I don't believe it would be real anyway, Ashley scoffed. So why are you doing all this? For the house? For the money? I looked her dead in the eye. I'm doing it because I exist, and I'm not letting you erase me. Not again. My dad exhaled sharply, as if it physically pained him. Maybe. It did good. My mom's lips trembled. I didn't think you'd fight back like this. I know. I let the silence settle after that. Then I turned and walked back up the steps to my building. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew they were watching. And for the first time in a long, long time, I was fine with that. After the confrontation, the silence grew deafening. I didn't hear from them for nearly a week. No texts, no emails, no unexpected visits, just pure, echoing nothing. Admit a part of me waited for it, for someone to say, "You're right. We messed up," but it never came because people like them don't apologize. They recalculate. The next thing I heard wasn't from my parents. It was from Dana, my lawyer. They've retained counsel, she told me over the phone, which means they're not trying to sweep this under the rug anymore. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. What does that mean for us? It means they're taking you seriously, she said. Finally, we filed a formal challenge to reinstate my legal interest in the property. The forensic handwriting experts submitted their affidavit. Dana drafted a petition to pursue damages related to fraud and loss of equitable interest.
It got
their attention. The house was taken off the market within 48 hours. And suddenly, they weren't pretending I didn't exist anymore. They were treating me like a threat, which honestly felt like progress. 2 days later, I received an email from a local reporter. Someone had tipped them off about the title dispute. They were working on a feature about inheritance, fraud, and sibling manipulation in estate cases. Would I be willing to talk? I didn't answer right away. I sat with it for hours. Part of me still felt the old reflex. Keep it quiet, don't stir the pot, don't make a scene. But then I remembered they had already made the scene. They just didn't expect me to step onto the stage. So I agreed, on the condition of anonymity. The article went live the following week. It was clean, professional, a little dry, but it got shared a lot. Comments poured in stories from people who'd been pushed out of inheritances, who were called selfish for speaking up, who had watched younger siblings take everything and be congratulated for it. I wasn't alone, not even close. The next surprise came in the form of a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to look. It was my aunt, my dad's sister. We hadn't spoken in years. Not out of malice, just distance. Family gatherings fell apart. After my grandmother died, and no one ever rebuilt the bridges, she was standing there with a folder in one hand and something that looked a lot like regret in her eyes. "Can I come in?" She sat at my kitchen table as if it physically pained her. She placed the folder between us. "I saw the article," she said, "and I need you to know. I believe you." I blinked. "Okay, and more than that," she continued, "I've seen things for years, the way your parents treat you. The way Ashley's been propped up like royalty while you were treated like staff." That got a bitter short laugh out of me. She opened the folder. Inside were old emails, handwritten notes, copies of conversations she'd had with my parents when the estate was being settled. "There was pressure to make things easy," she said. "Your dad didn't think you'd care. Sure. Mom said you were always so independent, but I knew something was off when I saw your name disappear from the paperwork." I didn't say anything, I just kept reading. Each page was a thread, and together they wove a very clear picture. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd planned to. She reached into her purse and pulled out a check. "This isn't to fix anything," she said, "but if you decide to take them to court, I want to help cover your legal fees." I stared at the check. Not for the money, but for the fact that it came with something I hadn't felt from anyone in my family in years. Allegiance. "I'm not looking to burn everything down," I said softly. "I know," she replied. "But you deserve to hold the match, just in case." Truth be told, I never cared that much about the house itself. Yeah, I said it. Not because it didn't matter, it did. It held every version of me my parents overlooked. The porch swing where I'd read Goosebumps books during summers. The scratch on the doorframe marking my height at 9 back when someone still paid attention to things like that. The kitchen where Grandma taught me to make peach cobbler and whispered, "You're the sharp one, Emily. They just don't see it yet." It mattered, but it wasn't about square footage or mortgage rights or hardwood floors. It was about history, about the fact that someone had finally drawn a line in my favor, and they had erased it without a second thought. That's what I couldn't forgive. So, when the reporter followed up, asking if I wanted to go fully on record publicly, I took a breath and said yes. Not because I wanted to shame my family, but because for the first time in my life, I had something they couldn't edit, minimize, or delete: my voice. The piece ran 2 weeks later, not in a tabloid or some gossipy subreddit, but in a legitimate publication under the headline, "When the Quiet One Fights Back: A Story of Inheritance, Erasure, and Visibility." My name was right there, Emily Parker. I'd never seen it look so powerful. People shared it. People I hadn't spoken to in years texted me, professors, old classmates, even a former manager. Some messages were short, just, "I see you." Others poured out paragraphs, stories of their own silencing, their own golden child siblings, their own battle scars from families who mistook silence for weakness. Even Dana was surprised. "Most inheritance disputes stay in the dark," she said. "But you brought this one into the light, and you didn't flinch." I did flinch, though, alone at night when the adrenaline faded and all that was left was the ache. Because no matter how justified I was, this wasn't victory. Not yet. That came one morning when I opened my inbox and saw a message from the county clerk's office. Subject: title correction approved. Body: your name has been reinstated on the Deed 2314 Willow Lane per court order and consent decree. Full legal interest restored. Attached, updated title record. I just stared at the screen. No champagne pop. No celebratory playlist. Just stillness. Then I did something strange. I laughed. Not loud, not joyful. More like a release. Because it wasn't just my name that had been restored. It was the reality of what I'd always known but had never been allowed to say. I was never the problem. I printed the title, framed it, and hung it on the wall above my desk, not because I cared about the property, but because it was a physical, undeniable reminder that I existed. I mattered. I left a paper trail, and no one erased me this time. That weekend, I went back to the house alone. It was still empty, cold, echoing in ways I didn't expect. I walked through each room slowly, letting the dust cling to my shoes, letting the silence settle around me like a blanket I'd outgrown. I stood in the kitchen where Grandma used to hum Patsy Cline, ran my fingers along the windowsill where my science fair project once exploded. I paused at the hall closet where I used to hide after dinner when things got loud and sharp and too much. Then I sat on the front steps and watched the lights spill across the porch. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for someone to notice me. I wasn't hoping to be called inside. I wasn't holding my breath for a crumb of recognition. I just sat because I belonged. Because this space and this story had always been mine too. And now, finally, they knew it. The messages started the same day the article dropped. Not from strangers, but from family. Voicemails, texts, missi. Didn't even know they knew how to send them. First came the confusion. My dad: "Why would you go public like this? You could have handled this privately." My mom: "Emily, you're making us sound like monsters. That wasn't our intention. You know that." Ashley: "Congrats on the clout, I guess. Hope it was worth blowing up the family." Then came the guilt, or their version of it. My dad again: "We were wrong. I see that now. I just didn't realize how much we hurt you." "I'm sorry, kiddo." My mom: "I wish you had told me sooner how much this meant to you. Maybe we could have fixed it." But that was the thing. I had told them 1,000 different ways. Every achievement I shared, that got brushed aside. Every quiet question I asked, hoping for a real answer. Every time I stepped out of the spotlight, thinking maybe, just maybe, that would finally earn their love without demanding it. They just hadn't been listening. So this time, I didn't rush to reply. I didn't reply at all. Not for days. I spent that weekend cleaning out old folders, unsubscribing from junk emails, and reorganizing my bookshelf. There was something almost spiritual about deleting the group chat thread with my parents, like clearing mental storage space. They still existed. They just didn't take up the same room in my head anymore. On Monday, I received a certified letter. It was from their lawyer. No lawsuit, no threats, just a settlement offer. They were willing to discuss a buyout if I wanted to walk away from the property. Apparently, Ashley still wanted the house. Sat with that for a long time, not because I wanted the money. I didn't. Not because I was tempted. I wasn't. But because the offer felt like what it always was with them. A shortcut. Way to throw money at the problem instead of facing what caused it. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to Dana. Her reply was one line. "Let's make this fun." We rejected the offer. Not with anger, not with venom, just clarity. My legal interest wasn't for sale. Not to them, not anymore. A few days later, I got a knock on the door. It was Ashley. No makeup, no filters, just standing there like a ghost who'd gotten lost on the way to a better version of her life. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "I just want to talk." I let her in, not out of forgiveness, but out of curiosity. She stood in my kitchen, eyes darting like she was waiting to be yelled at. "I didn't know they'd actually take your name off," she said quickly. "I thought it was just being shifted around for paperwork. I didn't say anything." She kept going. "I'm not the villain, okay? I didn't ask to be the favorite. It just gave me everything. I didn't know how to say no." I looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time I realized she wasn't proud. She was terrified because if I was no longer invisible, then she was no longer untouchable. She stepped toward me. "So, what happens now?" I shrugged. "I keep doing what I've always done, just louder this time." She looked down. "Do you hate me?" I paused. "No," I said truthfully. "But I don't trust you either." She nodded slowly, as if she understood. Then she handed me an envelope. "From Mom and Dad. Well, you'll see." She left quietly, as if she finally understood what that word actually felt like. Inside the envelope was a card. Hallmark, obviously. Gold lettering faux. Sincerity. The message inside was handwritten, not forged this time. "We don't know how to fix what we broke, but we want to try. Please don't shut us out, Mom and Dad." I placed the card on my desk. I didn't throw it out, didn't frame it, just let it sit there because I wasn't looking for redemption. And I definitely wasn't asking for repair. I had already done the hardest part, choosing myself, even when they didn't. And some bridges aren't meant to be burned. They're meant to be walked away from. Calm, proud, on your own 2 feet. I kept the card, not because I needed it, but because it reminded me how far I'd come. At one point in my life, a gesture like that would have cracked me open. I would have clung to it, read into it, replayed it in my head until it morphed into something it never was. I would have mistaken it for love. Now, it was just paper. Paper with some ink and a few decades too late. Because here's the truth. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you build. And I was already building mine. A few weeks after the title was restored, I was invited to speak at a community workshop. It was about a state literacy knot. A flashy topic, but one that resonated with many people who'd been blindsided just like me. But then I thought about how many others out there were like me. The quiet ones, the dependable ones, the ones who got cut out, not just from property, but from memory. So I said yes. The room wasn't packed, maybe 20 people, mostly older, some with notebooks, some just there to listen. But when I told my story, the real story, not the summarized version, they leaned in. And for the first time I felt what it meant to not just exist in someone's life, but to be truly seen. After the talk, a woman approached me in tears. "Brother took everything," she said. "They said I didn't need it, but I needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy." "You're not," I said, and I meant it. That night, I went home and opened a new document on my laptop, titled The Second Daughter Fund. Its mission, to help women, especially the quiet ones, navigate estate injustice, legal literacy, and family erasure. I didn't need to build a nonprofit. I had no reason to go that big, but I wanted to. Because while my family spent years doling out spotlight in silence like prizes and punishments, I had finally found a different kind of power, the ability to give someone else what I'd never received. The fund launched smaller. Donation here, a consultation there. Then someone shared my article again. A podcast invited me to speak. A lawyer in Minnesota reached out to help pro bono. It grew, not virally like a meme, but steadily, quietly, like me. One morning, I received a handwritten letter in the mail from my grandmother's oldest friend, someone I hadn't seen since I was 12. She'd read the article, seen the follow-ups. Her message was short, but it stayed with me, Ruth always said. You'd be the one to carry the torch. Looks like she was right. I cried for the first time in months. Not because I was sad, but because I finally believed it. I didn't need the apology. I didn't need a do-over. I didn't even need them to understand. I had built something better. It's been a year now. The house I still own my share. I haven't decided what to do with it. Maybe I'll renovate it into a retreat for women navigating inheritance disputes. Maybe I'll sell it and put every dollar into the fund. I haven't rushed the decision. Ashley sends holiday texts, now, civil, short. I reply politely. My mom emails updates sometimes. She asks how the fund is doing. She says she's proud of me. I don't correct her. Let her think she's always been in my corner. That's her story to live with. Me, I don't need the rewrite because I'm not the footnote anymore. I'm not the second-place daughter, not the backup plan or the forgotten name on a legal form. I'm the one who spoke. I'm the one who stayed. I'm the one who rebuilt the legacy in my name. And the best part, they can't silence what they can't reach.